With that, Tom Hannifan joins us. Tommy, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasant walk down memory lane every time we connect here. I always learn so much. I seem to be right after the This Day in History segment. So I'm fascinated. Keep going.
Yeah. It's always a lot of fun to look back. All right, Tom, let's get to Penn State football because they're in camp. Today's day 3 of camp. They'll get an off day tomorrow. So what, in your opinion, needs to be accomplished between now and August 31st when they get on the plane to Lafayette?
They got to figure out who their concrete starting 5 is at offensive line. I think, Steve, you and I have a pretty good idea of what that rotation is going to be. The name of the game for the offseason is just don't get anybody hurt. And I imagine that's probably going to continue to be the case through August. So priority 1 is find out who those 5 guys are and then make sure that they are put in bubble wrap until we head to West Lafayette for the game against Purdue, because it's the oldest cliche about football, Steve, but it's 100% true regarding the 2022 Nittany Lions football season, is that this team goes the way the offensive line goes. Sean Clifford goes the way the offensive line goes. Nothing happens without continuity at that position.
And I've also found it interesting that James Franklin and all of us around it have taken really the same approach. He's not going to talk about them. I'm not going to say, hey, they have a chance to be this. I think he's going to we're all going to find out together what we think, even though as the preseason goes, anybody around it will have their opinion about how good they're going to be. I think he's just going to let it play out and we'll see for ourselves.
I agree, and Steve, you know James better than I do. He's very particular about what he says and does not say in the media, specifically about his players. If he's going to blow sunshine up some guy's backside, he's doing it for a reason, or maybe he's trying to motivate and inspire. We've talked to plenty of guys on my show, Paydirt, a Penn State Football Show, which is on ESPN Radio State College tomorrow afternoon, that there's plenty of guys who can attest to, yep, that's just something James Franklin does. He will use the media for those instances. So I think he just wants to let these guys marinate through the month of August and then come out firing against the Boilermakers. So I really hope that some of the additions, both young and veteran additions from the transfer portal, do the trick. And then I was really impressed with guys like Landon Tengwall last season. I think we have a really big chance to make a jump. Juice Scruggs has been on a lot of award watch lists, which I think if you told us that last year was quite surprising. So I think Juice has a chance, and there's a lot of guys that are going to be able to rotate in and hopefully help spark things for this offense altogether.
You lose a guy to the draft, and he was here 4 years, in Jahan Dotson. Parker Washington, Malik Mega, Keandre Lambert-Smith, but they added in Mitchell Tinsley, and you had a chance, obviously, to see him in the blue-white game. How much help can he give them?
I love Mitchell Tinsley. I'm really excited about Mitchell Tinsley. Everything since he's arrived on campus has been overwhelmingly positive from the coaching staff and his fellow players. First of all, losing Jahan Dotson, that is huge. I'm of the mind that Parker Washington steps right into the spot that Jahan Dotson had, and Penn State doesn't miss a beat at wide receiver. I think that much of Parker Washington. I think he is probably more of your traditional slot wide receiver, but we know Mike Yursich, the offensive coordinator, is going to get creative with where he lines these guys up, whether it be split end, whether it's going to be the backside of the formation in the slot. You never know. I think Mitchell Tinsley is really going to be a nice addition because it's just going to make things complicated for defenses. I think we can agree that Keandre Lambert-Smith and Malik Mega are probably going to be the 3 and the 4. It's just going to create a lot of mismatches. Mitchell Tinsley was very used to being a volume wide receiver at Western Kentucky. Now, everybody's going to say, but it was Western Kentucky. I get that. With this stage in the Big Ten, I think you're going to see this guy really fit in nicely, and dare I say it's going to be a transfer that goes as smoothly as Arnold Ebiketie from Temple to Penn State. I think that much of Tinsley.
Well, since you reference Arnold Ebiketie, let's go to the defense. How good can that group be?
I think there's a potential to be a very solid team within the Big Ten. I don't believe you're going to see the same ability that you saw overall from the defense last year. I think there's a lot of pieces that went to the National Football League that you're going to miss. Ebiketie, Jaquan Brisker, the list goes on and on. Losing Brent Pry is not a gigantic blow because, yes, you did replace him with Manny Diaz, the former head coach from the University of Miami, Florida. So that feels good. Manny Diaz is a very similar type of personality to what Brent Pry was. There was that continuity within Franklin's regime and known Pry for a long time. And you're going to see some differences. There's been a lot of talk about they're going to be blitzing more. There's going to be 3 safety looks. I mentioned Brisker. Brisker is – I don't think people realize how darn good Jaquan Brisker was at Penn State. The fact that it will probably take 3 different safeties and 4 different players, really, to replace everything that he was doing. Now, some of that is scheme, but it's not too often you see a guy leave and then all of a sudden you need someone who can cover, someone who can play center field, and then somebody who can also step into the box and play that linebacker position, because Brisker was doing that pretty much on his own, which is astonishing. I think, Steve, I'm really excited about the defensive line because there's probably 8 to 12 guys who have a chance to make an impact. And we'll see who winds up as the starters. I think we all have a pretty good idea of who that's going to be. But I'm really excited about the depth at that position. And it's so many guys of, hey, we've been waiting a long time to see people like Beeman, Isaac, the list goes on, and guys that, oh, now it's your chance. Keziah Izzard, Devon Elliott, now is your chance. And are you going to take full advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah, and you talk about safety. By the way, the people in Chicago are finding out how good Brisker is. He's getting nothing but rave reviews in the Bears camp, which brings to the guy from Lackawanna that is still here, and that is Ji'Ayir Brown, who led the nation in interceptions last year with 6. Your thoughts on him?
I love Ji'Ayir Brown. I mean, what's not to like? I think him taking a larger role in terms of leadership, not to say that he wasn't a leader on last year's team, but as we mentioned, it was Jaquan Brisker. Ellis Brooks at linebacker was a tremendous leader for this defense. Plus, you add in the impact of Ebiketie. This is just going to be a different team. You're going to be leaning more on Joey Porter Jr. Of course, P.J. Mustipher is going to be there as he's rehabbing from injury. All signs point to Mustipher being good to go here in the early parts of the season. But Ji'Ayir Brown is outstanding, and I think he's added a little bit of weight. Everybody said that during winter workouts he was putting on a little bit more muscle mass, trying to get to the point that Jaquan Brisker was contributing in multiple facets, like I just said. I think Ji'Ayir Brown, is he going to put up the same amount of interceptions that he did last year? I don't think so, but I think you're still going to see his skill set. It's just going to branch out. There's so much more that he's going to be able to do, and especially, Steve, like we just talked about, if there's 3 safeties, you feel a lot better knowing Ji'Ayir Brown is anchoring that position and has got the back end of the defense for you.
Who are the young players you're looking at on either side of the ball?
I love Jordan Vandenberg. Give me Jordan Vandenberg more and more often. 6'3", 291 pounds out of Johannesburg, South Africa, transfer from Iowa Western. I loved what limited action I saw of him last season, and especially in the Outback Bowl. On Paydirt at Penn State Football Show, the podcast there today, and it'll be on ESPN Radio State College tomorrow afternoon from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. We had Brandon Noble on the show, a star from the 1990s, the 94 undefeated season, the 96 season, and his adage is low man wins. Well, Vandenberg, 6'3", maybe not the greatest height in terms of a defensive tackle that was ever created, but he is powerful. I am very, very excited to see what he can do. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Steve, I really want to see what Nick Singleton's all about. I think Nick Singleton has got a ton of hype. Everything through camp has sounded positive. Everything since he's arrived on campus earlier this year has been outstanding. The hype is there, 5-star recruit, et cetera. But it hinges on the offensive line. Is he going to be able to have the space to be a game changer like a lot of people think he will? So I think that's an easy thing to look at Singleton, but if he hits, that is a big deal for this offense.
What do you think? How anxious are you to see Dani Dennis-Sutton play?
I'm really interested to see. You and I talked about him the last time I was on the show, is that, he's getting in later in the year. He had suffered a season-ending injury his senior year of high school. So he's coming off of that, but he's definitely somebody that, based on all the analytics and the expert recruiters, going to have a chance to maybe contribute right away. The same thing with Zane Durant at defensive tackle. There's some really exciting prospects along the defensive line. they're going to need somebody to step up at defensive end with Ebiketie leaving. Was one of the best in the Big Ten last season at that position, alongside guys like Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson, who were pretty high in the NFL draft. So I need to see some production at defensive end. It's why they went into the portal and got Chop Robinson from Maryland.
Yeah.
Defensive end is absolutely going to be a focal point because you feel pretty good, I think, about defensive tackle, of course, with Mustafa, and then who's that second guy that solidifies the spot. But Penn State has got to get a pass rush because last year, disrespect to anybody else, at the world. If you can get a little bit more production from that position from multiple guys, you're really happy. I think Dani Dennis-Sutton could be the one to burst out.
Well, you get more pressure up front. We talked about Brown getting 6 interceptions. You might get more picks because of pressure.
Absolutely. And listen, I think in terms of playing in the secondary and getting picks, I think Joey Porter Jr. puts it all together this season. We can see the raw ability that he has, and Daquan Hardy out there in the secondary is not to be underestimated at all. I think those guys are future high NFL draft picks. But Joey Porter Jr., we looked at last season, issues at the point of contact, throwing flags at the wrong time, maybe getting a little bit lost here and there in coverage. I really am curious to see if he locks down that number one corner position that Tariq Castro-Fields, I think you could point to, was last season. So there's a lot of guys in the secondary that are going to have a chance to eat. It's just who does it.
Yeah. Special teams will be important. I mean, Jordan Stout kicked off last year. He kicked field goals, and he punted. So the special teams part, in your opinion, especially now with Stacey Collins in charge?
I like Stacey Collins so far, coming over from Boise State. I think that's a really exciting addition. Listen, I'm really excited to see Jake Pinniger be the guy as the kicker. I said it multiple times on Paydirt, and it's no disrespect to Jordan Stout. Jordan Stout is a great punter. I think we can all say reasonably was not a great kicker, kicking somewhere in the mid-60% conversion rate for his field goal attempts. I want to see Jake Pinniger step up and solidify that position because it's been a challenge for a little while. So I think Pinniger is going to be the guy. And meanwhile, what's the name of the punter? It's Gabriel Owusu.
Yeah.
One of the largest punters I've ever seen. Oh, my God. Just for your size, I can't wait to see him get out there if he gets the chance to be the guy at punter. But there's definitely going to be some competition with Pinniger, Amore, Bachetta, and Wosu I really like.
To his credit, he slimmed down. Okay.
Looks good.
No, he was. I mean, the conditioning program, it was a lot slimmer, trimmer game in the spring, and then even more so the guy I've seen this week. So that's great for him. How do you view the Big Ten with the upcoming season?
I think obviously Ohio State is going to be there. There's no question. I think Michigan is going to be talented. I'm curious to see where J.J. McCarthy goes with this. I think that's a really interesting change for Michigan, as we talked about a little while ago. Hutchinson and Ajabo going to the NFL. That was a huge part of what made Michigan so good last year, is they could run the football and they could get after the quarterback, to the most basic things in football. So if they can replace those positions, they have a chance to continue to be there. Mel Tucker's got Michigan State on the right path. You talked about Purdue. I don't know who walks out of that week one with a win, Penn State or Purdue. Seriously, that's kind of a pick-em to me. I think Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota are all going to be competitive. I definitely want to keep an eye on Minnesota this year. But listen, Penn State's got their work cut out for them. I don't think there's any game on the schedule that is a slam dunk necessarily. There are definitely those games in September where they're out of conference, and yes, those are ones that you can pretty much put as a lock in the win column. But when it comes to Big Ten play, I mean, I was in the crowd when this team lost to Illinois in 9 overtimes. Nothing is given this season, so I am curious to see how Penn State does.
Yeah, I was a witness to that too. All right.
It was rough.
Yeah. All right, Tom, the show's great with you and Matt. It's phenomenal, and appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having me on the show. Enjoy the upcoming season.